Welcome to the Reinvention Code. I'm your host, Dorinda Walker. Reinvention isn't random, it has a code. On this podcast, we'll explore what it really takes to navigate life's transitions with introspection, faith, and strategy. If you're evolving, rebuilding, or stepping into a new season, you're not just starting over, you're leveling up. Let's decode your next chapter together. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Reinvention Code. I'm your host, Dorinda Walker. This is the final episode of season 1, and I'm so grateful for those of you who've joined me on this journey. 20 episodes ago, I sat down with the intent to have an honest conversation with you. And as the season has evolved, I've concluded that the season was really about giving yourself permission. Permission to say the ugly thing out loud. Permission to stop protecting people whose dysfunction is costing you your peace. Permission to believe the ceiling you created or somebody else handed to you is an illusion. In reality, the only ceiling there is the one you create by limiting your own beliefs. And I want to name exactly how we build those ceilings, because it's rarely just one thing, right? Sometimes it's a belief system, something you were told so early and so often that it stopped feeling like an opinion and started feeling like a fact. Sometimes it's imposter syndrome. You get into that room and the whole time you're in it, part of you is waiting to be found out, waiting for someone to realize you don't belong there. When the fact is, you wouldn't be there if God didn't want you in that room. And sometimes it's just plain fear of failure. The quiet math of, if I don't try, I can't fail. So I just won't try. And all three of those do the same job, right? They convince you the ceiling is permanent and that it's load bearing, when really it's just a belief you agreed to a long time ago and never went back to question. If you've learned anything from my journey and from the journey of my guests, it should be this: give yourself permission to fail. If you learned anything from my journey and from the journey of my guests that I've had on season 1, it should be this: it's okay to give yourself permission to fail if it means that you get to fulfill the mission and vision that you have for your life. Because even if you fail, you'll learn something that will help you along the journey. And maybe that failure opens up the door that God intended you to walk through all along. And maybe you don't fail, and what you do is bigger and better than anything you could have imagined. If you've been with me all season, you already know I don't do surface level conversations on this show. We've talked about mediocrity and where it's actually born. We've talked about the guilt of outgrowing dysfunction and what it costs you to finally say, I love you, but I will no longer enable or fund your mediocrity. We talked about the inheritance we're building for the people coming up behind us and the biases we must audit in ourselves before we can actually lead anybody. And on the last episode, we talked about titles, the ones you chase and the ones that actually matter. So here's what I want you to notice. Every one of those episodes was really the same conversation based on a different topic. Somebody somewhere told you what you were allowed to have, allowed to want, allowed to become, whatever you decide that means for your life. Those beliefs somehow got embedded based on your life experiences, often delivered by people who may or may not have had your best interests in mind. And this whole season, the message God used me to deliver is this: you don't need their permission. You never did. Because the life God has planned for you was never based on another human being's belief about what was possible for your life. Those visions and dreams God put into your head weren't decoration, right? They were there for a reason. They were there to tell you what was possible. But only you can decide to believe that God will provide as long as you put the work in. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10 says it plainly. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand, that we should walk in them. That work was already prepared for you. You just need to walk past the person blocking the doorway, whether it's yourself or someone else. Now, I know a lot of you listening are in the middle of your own season of change right now. Maybe you just became an empty nester and the house is quieter than you know what to do with. Maybe you're navigating divorce or you lost your spouse and you're learning how to go back to an I instead of a we. Maybe you got laid off or you're in the middle of a career transition you didn't necessarily plan for. Here's what I know for sure. It doesn't matter which one of those is your season. The transition looks different on the outside, but the work underneath it is the same work every single time. Grieve the season that's ending. Take the time to really grieve it. Don't rush past it. But refuse to let loss decide what you're worth. And then give yourself permission to build the next chapter without shrinking what it cost you to get there. That's it. That's the whole code. Whether you're calling it widowhood or divorce or an empty house or a layoff, it's a different door, but the same room. And here's the part I didn't expect to be teaching you today, because this last one, I didn't learn it by overcoming something hard. I learned it by almost missing something good. So for the past month, I've been in the middle of planning 2 major events. And the big one, the one that had me working 10 to 12 hours for the past month, was Players Honors. I stepped into a new executive vice president role at Players TV this year. And it's been an honor and a joy, and it's something different for me. And one of my first major assignments was making sure that Players Honors was executed extremely well. And last week in the mail, I also received my second Telly Award for HBCU Honors. That makes 2 Telly Awards for a woman who just 5 years ago never even had the vision to work in television production. I say that not to brag on myself, but because I want you to understand the weight of what I'm about to tell you. This weekend, I was in Las Vegas, like I said, to coordinate the production of Players Honors. And over the past 30 days, I was making sure the run of show was tight, making sure every honoree felt seen, making sure the audience felt like the time was well spent, right, with our team, with the show, and that the millions of viewers watching on Players TV are inspired. Before every event, my prayer to God is the same. Let us inspire the audience to be great and let our work positively impact the lives of our audience and our team members. And we did it. We did the daggone thing. We delivered a high-quality award show honoring athletes who are doing tremendous philanthropic work in their communities. And this year's theme, and I really want you to sit with this, the theme was about health and wellness. I helped produce an entire show about health and wellness while running myself completely into the ground. You can't even make it up. But yes, I want you to mark your calendars, by the way, because Players Honors airs August 16th on Players TV. I want you to see the work. I want you to see who we celebrated. But I also want you to hear the rest of this story, because the show wasn't the only outcome. In the midst of it all, I learned a valuable lesson about myself, and it didn't come from the Players Honor stage. While I was in Vegas, my sister and friend Michelle G got tickets to see Mary J. Blige at her residency. And I'm a huge, huge, huge Mary J. Blige fan. I've seen her in concert at least 6 times. So when Michelle told me she had tickets, I said, I'm good. I've seen Mary 6 times. Let somebody else, take my ticket. I'm tired, right? I'm exhausted. I want you to notice what I just did there. I looked at an opportunity, front row seats to an artist I love in the middle of a city I was already in, and I talked myself out of it because I was tired. Because I told myself I'd already had my turn, but Michelle G was having none of it. She looked me in the eye. She was like, you going and you're going to enjoy yourself because you deserve it. She literally dragged me out the restaurant where we were having dinner. And beautiful people, I had the most fun out of the 3 of us who went. I was dancing, singing every word, fully present, fully alive in that moment. And on the way back, it hit me. I was about to take that moment for granted. Because I know not everybody gets the chance to sit front row for Mary J. Blige. Not everybody gets that access, that gift, that night. And exhaustion almost talked me out of receiving it. But my friends saw what I needed before I could see it myself. And she didn't ask me to talk myself into it. She just said, no, you're going and you're going to enjoy it. And that's not a small thing. That's someone else handing you the permission you had stopped giving yourself. So the next time an opportunity is standing right in front of you and your first instinct is to hand it off because it feels selfless, I want you to stop and say this out loud instead. I am deserving of this. It's okay to keep this for myself. But it gets better, y'all, because that night at the residency, Mary did something I wasn't expecting. She showed a clip on the screen of an interview she did with Angie Martinez. And Angie asked her after everything, after the career, after the Grammys, after decades of giving the world her voice and her story, Angie asked her, what's next for Mary J. Blige? What are you going to do with the rest of your life? And Mary looked at her without blinking and said, whatever the F I want. And in that moment, I felt like Mary was speaking straight to me. Because why not? Why can't we do whatever we want as long as it isn't harmful to anyone else? What is actually stopping you from doing what you want? Most of the time, it's not other people. It's your own limitations. If it's money holding you back, go find a way to earn some. If it's a relationship that's no longer serving your growth, that doesn't mean the person was disposable. It might just mean you've outgrown that season together. Or that peace requires you to finally name the dysfunction out loud instead of absorbing it quietly. Sometimes it's not even that traumatic. Sometimes it just means having an honest conversation so the people in your life can actually support you on the road you're on now instead of the one you used to be on. Because that's it. That's the whole lesson, said in 5 words by a woman who has earned the right to say it. And I'm sure you've earned the right as well. Whatever the F you want. It's not reckless or selfish, and it's not meant to disconnect you from purpose, faith, or family. It's meant to set you free. Free from needing anybody's approval for what comes next. Free from over-explaining your rest, your joy, or your choices. I said right then in that moment, out loud, in that seat, that's going to be my motto going forward. I'm going to do whatever the F I want. And I want it to be yours too. Not as permission to be careless with your life, but as permission to finally stop asking for validation that doesn't matter. That same voice that talks you out of the rest is the same voice that talks you out of the joy. It sounds reasonable. It sounds humble. It says, I've done enough. Someone else should have this. I don't have the energy to enjoy it anyway. But here's what I need you to hear. That voice isn't your exhaustion talking. It's an excuse, borrowing exhaustion's voice because it sounds more believable that way. That night made me look at something in myself I hadn't named yet. I've gotten way too comfortable in my own solitude. And when I sat with why, I realized it wasn't really about being tired that night. It was still grief. Grief still doing the work in me. What some people call emotional hibernation or pulling back from a world as a way to protect yourself from having to feel anything you're not ready to feel yet. It's not weakness. It's a defense your mind builds when it's been carrying too much grief for far too long. You know, I'm a psychology geek, so I read up on all the psychological things that are supposed to happen when you go through that grief process. And I realized that I put myself in solitude since 2022 in a lot of ways, right? So from the outside, it may look like I'm having this wonderful life, but on the inside and in the reality, I'm doing just enough to get by, but still finding ways to keep myself isolated. And it's nothing wrong with it, right? It's part of the grief process, but it's time for me to start living my life and finding joy again. Because those I've loved, particularly my husband, wouldn't want me to live in solitude. He'd want me to go and experience all the joy. And here's the irony. Michelle's only expectation of me that night was that I had fun. That's it. And I almost turned that down because somewhere along the way, solitude had quietly become a habit I built out of grief, right? A habit that left unchecked could start costing me joy I was never meant to give up. And I'm sharing with you because if you recognize that in yourself, If you're the one who's always pouring, always producing, always making sure everybody else's show goes off without a hitch, and somewhere along the way, alone started feeling safer than present, I want you to give yourself permission right now in real time, the way Michelle gave it to me. If you're feeling like you don't have the energy to enjoy the good thing in front of you, that's not a sign you should skip it. That's a sign that you're running on empty. And the good thing might be exactly what you need to refill you. So say yes anyway. Let joy do some of the work rest hasn't gotten to do yet. And if you're feeling guilty for taking the rest or the trip or the front row seat because someone else deserves it more, I want you to hear me. Somebody else's need does not cancel out yours. You are allowed to receive good things. You should expect to receive good things. And if you're feeling like you've already had your turn at something, so you should let it pass you by, I want you to check that voice because that's scarcity talking and not truth. God does not ration joy, and neither should you. If you feel like slowing down makes you look weak or unbothered or less committed, I need you to release that. Self-care is not what you do when the work is over. It's what makes the next work possible. I said that earlier this season, and Vegas proved it to me all over again. And if you don't have a Michelle G in your life yet, someone who will look you dead in your face and say, you're going and you're going to enjoy it, I want you to be that voice for yourself today, out loud, right now, wherever you're listening to this podcast from. Say it with me. I will go and I will enjoy myself because I deserve it. Now that I'm home, it's my season to wind down. Not disappear, not quit, just replenish. And for me, that looks like swimming. I'm a water baby. I'm a Pisces. I love the water, right? I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to get a massage. I'm going to allow myself to relax instead of mentally drafting my next to-do list, right? Meditation and quiet reflection on the beach, that time brings me closer to God, right? Because it's where I actually refill and not just relax. I want you to find that version of that. Not what looks good or is convenient on somebody else's timeline, but what actually fills you back up. If you're in corporate America and you still have more than half your PTO still sitting there, unused, stop letting it sit there and go schedule the time off. You've already earned it. So it's yours. If you're an entrepreneur, nobody's handing you PTO, right? You have to build it yourself. So I want you to commit to blocking time on the calendar the same way you'd block time for a client meeting and protect it with that same non-negotiable respect. Nobody is coming to give you permission to rest or to replenish. You have to give it to yourself. Because look here, beautiful people, I am not resting to disappear. I am resting on purpose because I have more work to do, and I want to be at my best when I do it. In August, I have the honor of receiving an honorary doctorate in humanities, and I'm beyond grateful. And there are a few more things on my calendar right now that I'm not ready to name yet, including season 2 of the Reinvention Code, which is already forming. And I promise you, it's going to be great with more incredible guests and stories that inspire. I'm taking 2 weeks off to refuel before I dive back in, because what I've learned about building a podcast is you have to be consistent and committed to achieve success. The permission to rest and the permission to keep building are not in conflict. One funds the other. You cannot pour into the next honor, the next chapter, the next assignment from an empty vessel. So before I close out season 1, I want to share these reinvention codes with you. And I need it to actually land somewhere, y'all, not just sound good. So here's code 1. That ceiling isn't real. You just never questioned it. And here's what I mean by that. It's a human occurrence that somewhere along the journey, you develop a false belief system that somebody handed you, right? Imposter syndrome telling you the room made a mistake, letting you in. Fear of failure convincing you not to even try. None of that is a real ceiling. That's something you believed for so long, you stopped checking if it was true. And the second you question it and analyze belief versus fact, it'll stop holding you back. I guarantee it. Code number 2. Give yourself permission. You are allowed to receive joy. You already earned the tickets, the trip, the moment, the first time, the second time, and so on, through the years that you put in, the work you did, the life you built. Don't let that solitude that comes as an outcome of grief tell you that you have to earn it again before you're allowed to enjoy it. Learn from my Vegas experience. Don't buy into the excuses that you have to rest more first or prove you deserve it. Wait until things calm down first. Because people, that is a lie dressed up as responsibility. You do not need a second invoice for a gift that's already been paid for. If the door is open, walk through it. You've already earned what's on the other side. Because believe me, if you didn't earn it, God wouldn't have opened the door. Code number 3, exhaustion is honest. The excuse it hands you isn't. Here's what I mean by that. When you're tired, that exhaustion is real, right? And it deserves respect. If your body is telling you to rest, that's not the part that I'm asking you to question. What I'm asking you to question is the story that shows up wearing exhaustion's voice, because there's a difference. Because there's a difference between I'm tired and I need to rest, and I've had my turn, so this belongs to someone else now. The first one is your body telling the truth. The second one is an excuse dressed up to sound like maturity or humility, even wisdom, right? I've seen it before. I've lived it. Let me allow someone else to have this. I'm too tired to enjoy it anyway. That's not exhaustion. That's your mind handing you an excuse or a reason to shrink and asking you not to look closely at it or question it. That's the one I almost missed in Vegas. Was I genuinely tired? Yes, that part was true. But the thought that followed, that I'd already had my turn and should let someone else have this one, that wasn't tiredness. It was an excuse borrowing tiredness's credibility. Don't let a story like that make a permanent decision about what you're allowed to receive. Of course, I want you to rest when you're tired, but don't let tired talk you out of the joy that's yours to have. Code number 4, allow people to love on you. Sometimes the people who love you can see what you need before you can, and I want you to let them. I want to be honest. It is humbling to need somebody else to see what you couldn't see in yourself, especially if you're the one who was usually doing the singing for everybody else. But that's exactly why you need people like my friend Michelle in your life. People who are close enough to you and honest enough with you to say, no, you're going. Don't isolate yourself out of pride. Let the people who love you do for you what you keep doing for everyone else. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Code number 5. You can't pour into the next honor from an empty vessel. So go see Mary J. Blige. I highly recommend catching her residency if you love her music or if you're just inspired by her journey. Go to the beach. Go hiking. Go climb that mountain. Take vacation. Go do the thing that you almost gave away. Every honor I received this year, the new role, the second Telly Award, whatever comes next after the doctorate in August, none of it is sustainable if I keep showing up to it running on empty. Rest is not an interruption to our purpose. Rest is what makes the purpose real. So go do the thing. Not eventually, not when it's convenient. Go do it when it's right in front of you. What I've come to learn as I get older is I'm going to lose more people that I value, cherish, and love. That's the hard reality of life and getting older. At the age of 55, I know I don't have time to make excuses or to put things off. So I want to tell you, if you want to do it, do it. Call the person, take the trip, say the thing you've been sitting on. None of us are promised the next season, the next visit, the next chance. Don't let later cost you the moment you actually need it. Don't live a life of regret. Code number 6, do whatever the F you want. I'm giving MJB her own code because she earned it and because I need you to actually take this one with you when you leave this episode. This isn't about being reckless or unaccountable. It's about finally releasing the constant performance of explaining yourself to others. You do not owe anyone a justification for your joy, your boundaries, your rest, or your next chapter. Some decisions don't need a committee. Some seasons of your life get to just be yours. And so here's the reality. The only thing stopping you from doing whatever you want is you. So what are you waiting for? Just do it. This has been season 1 of the Reinvention Code, y'all. We've talked about titles, enabling, legacy, bias, and now permission. And if you go back and listen to all 20 of those episodes, here's what you'll find underneath every single one of them. People who kept discovering over and over that they were allowed to have more than what they were handed. More peace, more boundaries, more joy, more blessings, more career, more life. Just more, y'all. And so are you. You are allowed to stop agreeing with the limitations somebody else assigned you before you were even old enough to argue back. You are allowed to love people without enabling or funding their dysfunction and mediocrity. You are allowed to lead from a healed place instead of the hardened one. You are allowed to ask who you are beneath every title you've ever worn, and to really like that answer. And you are allowed today, this week, and in this season of your life to say yes to the good things in front of you without needing a reason, without needing permission, without needing to earn it again and again and again. Do whatever the F you want on purpose, unapologetically as you. So before I leave, I want you to mark your calendars to watch Players Honors on Players TV and come celebrate with me. And to every single one of you who has listened, shared, commented, and sat with me through this first season, thank you. I do not take one download, one message, one shared episode for granted. Season 2 is already forming, and I promise you, we are just getting started. So until we meet again, go give yourself the permission you've been waiting for somebody else to hand you. As always, I wish you much peace, much joy, and many blessings. I'm Dorinda Walker, and this has been the Reinvention Code. Until season 2, keep building, thriving, and protecting your peace with much love and as much joy as your heart can take. Thank you for listening to the Reinvention Code. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's stepping into their next season. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. Remember, reinvention isn't random. It has a code. I'll see you next time.